This dog was abandoned in absolutely desperate conditions, something that can hardly be described in a few words. His appearance, his expression, everything about him conveyed profound suffering, as if the weight of each day spent searching for his owner had consumed him completely. The pain was etched in his eyes, and anyone who saw him could sense the desperation he carried. He wandered around, exhausted and disoriented, as if his only mission was to find the one who should have once protected him, but who cruelly abandoned him. What makes this story even more painful is knowing that he was not simply lost, but was deliberately tied to a tree by his own owner, who without any compassion left him behind. Local residents said that, in an act of pure betrayal, the man tied the dog up and left, never looking back. However, by some miracle or impulse for survival, he managed to escape and set off in a desperate search for someone who no longer wanted to know about him. Imagine the confusion of this animal, the desire to believe that his owner had simply gotten lost and would come back to look for him. This thought perhaps kept him alive until the moment we found him. His health condition was, without exaggeration, alarming. We discovered that he had been ill for at least 6 months. His skin was terribly damaged by acute dermatitis that had already worsened into a serious infection. Open, inflamed wounds covered much of his body, and his skin, in addition to being scaly, seemed to have lost all vitality, rough and painful to the touch. In addition, he was in an extreme state of malnutrition. His bones were exposed, and his weakness was evident with every hesitant step he took. We knew that the road to recovery would be long and arduous, and that his cure would require not only proper medical treatment, but also infinite patience from all of us. The dermatitis, in particular, was a problem that would require intensive treatment and constant monitoring. We would have to disinfect each of his wounds regularly, clean them carefully, apply special ointments, and take care of his diet, which had to be rich in nutrients to help him gain weight. However, what really surprised us was his cooperation. Even in the midst of unbearable pain, he remained calm and allowed us to care for his wounds, as if he knew instinctively that we were there to help him. His hunger seemed insatiable. Every time we offered him food, he would devour it with such voracity, as if he didn't know when his next meal would be. His plate was never empty for long. It was clear that he hadn't eaten enough for months, maybe even longer. With each nutritious meal we gave him, we waited anxiously for his recovery, hoping that one day he would not only regain his weight, but also his joy in life. In the first few weeks, he avoided other dogs. There was no trace of aggression in him, but his isolation was evident. He didn't want to get close to anyone, as if, deep down, he still believed that his owner could appear at any moment. This sadness seemed to envelop him, but in the midst of the pain, something began to change. At one special moment, I felt his gaze land on me. It was a different look, no longer the empty, lost look of before. There was something new there, a recognition, a glow of gratitude. He was beginning to understand that now there were people willing to take care of him. The vet, when assessing his condition, warned us about the difficulties we would face. He was clear, a complete recovery would be very difficult, perhaps even impossible. His skin was deeply damaged, and it would take continuous effort to try to restore it. Still, we didn't give up. With tireless work, we applied oils, medicated creams, and followed a rigorous care routine. And then, against all odds, something extraordinary began to happen. 2 weeks after starting treatment, the scales began to disappear, and the skin, which had previously been cracked and infected, began to show signs of regeneration. The changes were not just physical. As the days went by, we noticed that his behavior was also changing. The dog, who had previously been isolated, began to interact, albeit shyly. Within a month, we saw something exciting. The first signs of new hair were beginning to appear on some parts of his body. Each small hair that appeared was a sign of hope, a reminder that our efforts were working. But despite these physical improvements, his eyes remained filled with sadness. He had been through so much that emotional healing seemed to be an even greater challenge. 2 months later, however, we saw something extraordinary. He began to wag his tail at us. That simple gesture, which for many dogs is an everyday occurrence, was a huge milestone. He was showing us that he was finally beginning to trust people again. He was interacting with other dogs, playing, and for the first time we saw a real smile on his face. After 5 months of intensive care, this dog, who had previously been in a state of complete abandonment, now had a name, Aziz Khan. He was stronger, healthier, and his previously non-existent fur now covered a large part of his body. His transformation was so impressive that even the veterinarian, who had initially given a pessimistic prognosis, was surprised. We were able to restore 90% of his skin, a feat that initially seemed impossible. Today, Aziz Khan is an example of overcoming obstacles. He is a happy, lively dog who has found a new family who loves and cares for him. His journey is a powerful reminder that with love, dedication, and patience, even the deepest wounds, physical and emotional, can be healed. I will never forget the moment he wagged his tail for the first time, or the smile on his face when he finally felt safe and loved. Aziz Khan showed us that miracles are possible, and that no matter how bleak a situation may seem, there is always hope.